Okay, just saw Iron Man. Wow. Uh, where do I start? I like the first quarter of this film. It is funnier than the first two by far, and in many respects that's a plus. Robert Downey Jr. is as good as ever as Tony Stark, but whether or not that really holds the backbone for the entire film is a little iffy because I frankly don't think it did. The plot line was actually a little bit thin. I found the villains to just be, I mean, they did that thing with the Mandarin that they did was a really cool twist. I thought that was really funny. And it's interesting that this turned out to be more of like an action comedy than an action thriller. And then Guy Pearce, he did a really good job too. I just thought that the whole, whatever that weird fiery shit was just ridiculous. I hated it. I thought it looked bad. It's explained in a totally illogical way, and then it doesn't even directly correlate to the explanation given in the beginning of the film. I thought it was a cop out for so many things. So it just turned me off so much. Just like all these nameless villains fighting Downey Jr. These like generic guys, these henchmen that you just don't know. It just made me so mad. And just the fact that I personally just didn't even like what their power was. I just thought it was really just fake. It just felt super phony. And honestly, a lot of Iron Man, in a weird way, seems somewhat grounded in reality. This one is by far the least of all. Now that it's directed by a new director, Shane Black, I think it worked well mostly. It just, some of the decisions made in the script were just not right. It was just, okay, you see that scene where his house is getting blown up, right? But he doesn't actually get to do anything. He's in his suit and he's struggling to figure out this way, and that was fine. That was fine as the first action set piece. But I thought eventually he would at least get the suit on and be able to really kick some ass. And then when you think it's him doing it, it's not actually him doing it. He's just he's on the boat. The Iron Man is in the plane and stuff, and he's saving those people. It's like he's not actually physically in the suit doing that. So I don't know. It just like cut the dramatic tension for me. Even though you find out at the end of that scene, it was just annoying. It's like I want to see him get in the suit and do something. If there's anything I can compare it to, it's like if you watch The Dark Knight Rises and it got to the climax there and Batman never got to fight Bane. Now, Iron Man does fight the villain in the end of this, but he's not really in his suit ever. He's kind of in and out of it, and it just felt completely unsatisfying to me. Because it wasn't like he came back and was able to kick some ass, which is why I love The Dark Knight Rises ending so much. It was just more like he gets there and he's constantly struggling and he's stumbling and fumbling and things are happening that don't go his way, and it's just but he's not in the suit and things are blowing up around him and he really should be dead but he's not. It just gets rid of all the believability and is less exciting. But by the same token, in the middle of the movie when he locates the Meridian and he goes there and he has to figure things out because his suit is not powering up, and so he has to fight henchmen without actually having the suit by his side. I mean, that's really cool. But you have to have a payoff for not seeing Iron Man for that long, not truly seeing Iron Man. I mean, after all, that is what you're there to see. And to me, it was annoying. I mean, I love Downey Jr. and I love his character, but in the suit, it would be better. It's just the most frustrating thing ever because you just want to see him kick some ass in the suit, and he really just doesn't throughout the entire movie. I understand the concept of taking your hero and giving him weaknesses because he can't just be invincible. Otherwise, there's no tension, obviously. But what they did was keep the same amount of action, the same huge climax, but had him running around without his armor, doing all these things that he, would do in the suit, except he's doing it without any armor, and it's that does something to get rid of the tension. Because it's just so unbelievable. I just don't believe it's him doing this stuff. So it just comes off as absurd. And that's the biggest tension breaker for me. That's why I just consider the end a big joke. I was just like, this is ridiculous. Admittedly, I've been talking a lot of shit on this movie. So that's not to say that there's not good things about it. There were definitely a lot of enjoyable things. First off, all the casting is great. Guy Pearce is great, as I said. He effectively portrays, at least in the beginning, that kind of untrustworthy persona, but you're just not sure about him. So he pulled that off really well, so I do praise him for that. Gwyneth Paltrow, again, is great. Don Cheadle's pretty good. Rebecca Hall is... she's pretty good. And Jon Favreau is who is the director of the previous two. He was phenomenal as usual. He was funny. He and Robert have really great chemistry. I always in the previous two movies, I always really liked watching them work together. They're a really funny duo. Robert Downey Jr. of course is hilarious, almost to a fault, considering that when they're in quote unquote life-threatening situations, he's joking around. The director of this, Shane Black, is also a really good screenwriter. He penned Lethal Weapon, along with a few other notable works. But his skill of writing is totally apparent in this one, as this one does have probably the most witty, funny humor of all three. It's perhaps a little bit more subtle in the first one, but it's still it's really funny, and I give him all the props in the world for that. Made it very entertaining. Understandably, there's not a huge amount of practical effects used in the film, but the special effects, the CGI, is all phenomenal. It's really hard to tell when they use CGI and when they flip it and they have a real actor doing the stuff. And they're hitting a level with the physicality of the suits interacting with other people. It's very cool to see that progressing so far and so much closer to reality. To wrap it up, I'm going to give it a 6.5 because, frankly, I was just really frustrated that Downey Jr. didn't get in the suit. And he was great. He was great in the movie. I just really wanted to see him kick some ass. I mean, is that really too much to ask for? I don't know. Instead, we got all his flying henchmen, flying around doing the work for him. I just didn't like I don't know. I understand it's different from the other ones. I just didn't like that as much. It just wasn't as interesting or as fun to watch because at the end of the day, I wanted to see Robert Downey Jr., who is Iron Man without the suit, of course, but I wanted to see him be in the suit and do some cool shit. And, it isn't just because of that. It's for, a multitude of reasons that I listed before. It's just pretty thin plot line. The random nameless henchmen that he's fighting are just so generic. It's just ridiculous. I expected much more from those people. And also their power is really weird and inexplicable, and it just doesn't make much sense to me. So again, a 6.5, which is a rental. Well, who the fuck am I kidding? If you like Iron Man, you're gonna go see this movie anyway.